Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and all protocols observed. I'm very excited to bring you into Breakaway session number 1. Thank you for staying in the room. I'm going to ask you all to keep moving so we warm up the room a little bit. But to warm up this session, which is going to be focusing on how do we grow arrivals? How do we grow the actual arrival numbers? How do we grow the yield? How do we deal with seasonality? How do we make sure we get people coming back and repeat visitors? How do we do all of this in a way that works for all of us? To set the scene for us, I'm delighted to ask to join us on stage Derek Martin from REVPAR, after which I will then bring up our lovely panel. So Derek, it's over to you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so good afternoon. My name is Derek Martin. I'm the CEO and founder of REVPAR World. We're a data analytics company that focuses on the hospitality industry. So when looking at what we do in terms of, there seems to be a delay. Oh, the right picture's there, the wrong picture's there. So we can go back to that. So what we basically do is we look at a data analytics approach into revenue management and commercial management of hotels. Currently looking after 6,000 room nights a day. Cool. So it's the right image there, wrong image there. Right image there, wrong image there. Okay. Yeah. Correct image there, wrong image there. But we can deal with that. So once again, thank you very much for your time today. I'm Derek Martin, the CEO and founder of a company called REVPAR World. We're a data analytics company that focuses on the hospitality industry and maximizing the value of the customer and the experience, not the room. Using 100% data approaches within the industry, we go super granular when it comes to destinations, marketing, digital marketing, and so forth. As mentioned, currently looking after 6,000 rooms per day across 54 cities and 17 countries around the world. So we have access to real-time data. What I mean by real-time data is we could actually take any form of information, Google flights, hotel, pricing data in real time. Give you an example. I can basically look at every hotel's selling price on an online channel for the next 2 years at any given stage I want to around the world. So when you have access to real-time data, the data doesn't necessarily matter if you don't know how to use it. So what we've managed to do is we've managed to pull together all the various elements that's required within a commercial space. When I say commercial space, I'm talking modern-day hospitality management. The internet has brought a new era to the industry. Travel agents and internet now, no longer just one of the two. We found a way to take the data and maximize all the various segments at the same time. This can be done from a property with 5 rooms, which we're currently looking after. So the impact is transparency to your business. So I've been asked today to lay the foundation of our journey. COVID has actually come and have taken quite a bit of our pre-COVID memories away. We think COVID's killed our industry. We think we're still recovering. Ironically, we've been doing pretty okay since COVID. When looking at South Africa as a whole, according to the SDR data from 2018, you can see that the occupancies prior to COVID was pretty much flat. I mean, 17 to 18, we saw a decrease of 0.5%. 18 to 19, we saw a national decrease in occupancy of 2.24%. This was ironically driven from the Cape Town drought, and the people weren't booking in advance. We only felt the true impact on our occupancies a year and a half later. When looking into our word that we shall not mention, COVID, you could see that we literally dropped quite a bit in terms of COVID. We still showed an increase purely because of January and February. February was the highest occupancy, or February 2020, before March COVID, was actually the highest occupancy in South Africa for the last 6 years. So all our marketing efforts, all our tourism efforts, everything was starting to work. And then our good mate COVID came and said no. As you can see, 2021 also still in a massive, massive downward spiral. And more importantly, we're starting to look at the recovery, 22 and 23. We are still sitting at pre-COVID numbers in terms of occupancies. It's very important to mention that because an occupancy drives the beds and bums, drives the incremental spend, drives the people coming through the door. Obviously, as hoteliers, we're also interested in our pricing, and we want to start charging more. When looking at South Africa as a destination, we mention our inbound markets, we mention the US, the pounds, the euros. Why are we charging 1,000 Rand a night when we know that's $40? We can start looking at the way we price our destination and product, and the true value is in that. People are coming to South Africa to visit winelands, visit coasts, climb mountains. I've lived in 6 different countries. I'll always come back to South Africa because, to be honest, South Africa is God's country. You can go dive with the sharks, you can go climb the Drakensberg, you can go see the Big Five, and you can go visit a memorial in Johannesburg, all within a space of 5 days. What country allows you to do that? South Africa is truly, truly unique, especially when it comes to tourism. So I wasn't actually going to talk about the selling prices achieved in the country, but because of the vast difference in the prices over the last 5 years in terms of achieved selling prices of hotels in South Africa, I've decided to put a dedicated slide in for that. So as you can see, we actually went through the bell, which was caused by COVID. But ironically, when you look at the current year-to-date achieved selling price in South Africa, this is net revenue, after VAT, after breakfast, after any splits you take out, sitting at an average rate of 1,477 Rand, or 1,473 Rand. It's the highest achieved selling price we've achieved in our country since, ironically, 2016. I initially did this case study from 2016 to 2018. My slide was too small to put 8 years, so I actually went back down to 5. But as you can see, we are starting to charge the true value of what our offering as a country is. We talk about differentiation between 1 and 5 star. I think we have that. I think we have more than enough differentiation between our products and product offerings. We just don't know how to truly get the message out to the world that we've got so much to offer. I mean, I had friends from Portugal phone me saying they'll arrive in Joburg and book a train to Cape Town. Good luck with that. But you see, little things like that is what the world thinks South Africa has. But when they get here, we don't. So the message, what we need to actually get across is distribution. How do we distribute our rooms, our prices, our beautiful country to everyone? More importantly, how do we distribute trust? My wife is from Singapore. We spoke about a Singaporean being one of the biggest inbound markets into Africa. That's true. Ironically, there's not a single agent in Singapore selling South Africa right now, purely because of the riots that happened in KZN. She is now opening an inbound travel agency in South Africa. She's been living here for 3 years and fell in love with the country. So now she wants to do an inbound travel agency from Asia. We are struggling just with generic information to get back into the Asian market because it almost seems that we're not ready as a country to welcome all the customers that want to come and visit us, that want to come and explore with us. It's not about price. It might be about price from airlines, but it's certainly not about price from hotels. I mean, if we could look at an average of 1,473 in pounds and dollars, $60, it's $80. You go to New York and you book a 3-star property, you're probably paying $300 yourself, and you still think it's okay and cheap. So when looking at the bigger picture of the data and where the bookings are coming in, before I give you guys the actual financial figures of 23 versus 2019, when we look at my systems, I look at different variable segments in the industry. In an industry, you have your travel agents, your traditional markets, your inbound, your TDMs. We also got this wonderful thing called online at the moment. You know, we can have our own websites, travel agents, OTAs, etc. That is a whole new market that has developed in the last 10 years. 20 years ago, Booking.com didn't exist. 10 years ago, we weren't making bookings off our mobile phone. Now we are. So what I've done for you guys is I've just done a little sample size through some of my reservation systems. So you can see 21, we did 87,000 reservations sample size, 22, 160, and now we're sitting at 117,000 room nights for 2023 so far. What's interesting to see when you look at where the source data is coming in, when I say source data, it is important to remember if a group comes into South Africa, and the hotel does not capture the country stats of every single individual guest, how do we know where they come from? We assume the group is coming from America, but there might be different nationalities within an American group. But as hotels, we don't profile correctly. We don't take the data and say, oh, UK passport, part of an American group, UK. Source America, customer UK. The beauty of online distribution and online reservations is we can get source data. Even if my staff member makes a mistake and captures the wrong country, I can still go look at the VPN addresses, where the bookings are coming in, where the customers are truly coming from. Once again, it just adds a layer of data security and data validation for making decisions. We spoke earlier, we don't have the micro data needed to make decisions. Well, I already spoke to Joe and said I can help him with that, because we do. Looking at the trend and discussion, what we did was, 2021 was still quite deep into COVID. There was quite limitations when it came to inbound flight, airlift, etc. The domestic market saved us, guys. Thank you to the domestic market during the last 4 years. South Africans actually truly came to the party and helped us as an industry. Looking at 22, you can see the domestic has dropped down, and then now into 23, the domestic has dropped down even more. That's good. That means people are coming back into our country. So the domestics aren't traveling as much or booking as much anymore, but it's been displaced by inbound markets. The inbound markets don't change that often. We are seeing a continuous trend of the top 5, and we all know the top 5. It's always been the same. UK, Germany, Netherlands, Switzerland, and the USA. More importantly, emerging markets that we are starting to see. We've got 216 unique countries that have booked our systems through this financial year. So when you look at the emerging markets, France is coming back in a boom. Australia, even though it's a long flight, we spoke about the flight time, we're starting to see Australians coming massively into the country. Dubai, or the UAE, is becoming a massive market into the country, followed by Italy and then Israel. So what I want to leave you with is just 1 minute to look at some data slide. This is where my pure passion lies, is hotel data. Looking at 2019 versus 2023, we are currently 0.91% down in occupancy. 0.91% in occupancy means 144,000 room nights. Okay, we are down in room nights. If you take an average length of, or average couple, or 3 people in a room, we are down roughly 500,000 people that have stayed in our hotels versus 2019. But South Africans have realized their value. We've actually managed to charge 217 Rand more on average for a room night versus 2019. Ironically, that translates to 1.8 billion Rand in revenue. 217 Rand at 150,000 rooms less, 1.8 billion Rand in revenue more. That's scary. Because now you can imagine we had 200 more and we made the same amount of room nights as last year. We're going to rock. South Africa has been for the last 3 years or 4 years before COVID, 21, 22 billion Rand a year room revenue. As Joe said, 3 to 4%. Right now, we're forecasting 25 billion for 2023. So before COVID, we were stagnant in the 21 billions. Now we're seeing growth. This growth is coming from mindset change. This growth is coming from our industry being resilient, our industry being unique and changing things. And ironically now, we are starting to charge the value of what we are worth. We're seeing an impact on our trade and our industry. However, as mentioned, we're slightly behind 2019 in terms of numbers of people, which impacts the whole tourism industry. But from a base point of view, the industry is doing exceptionally well compared to 2023. We just need to continue adopting and adapting the new way. So thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, please feel free to find me after the session.
Thank you very much. And I've asked Derek to join us on the panel. And just a little bit of a secret about our speaker at the beginning of this session. When I went to greet him initially at the beginning of the session before he mic'd up, I said, "Oh, you're Derek." And he instinctively said, "Yes, and I'm also a sexy data geek." So I'm sure he's going to change his LinkedIn profile between now and then. But we're going to have a conversation with some other great leaders in our industry itself. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Sthembiso Dlamini, the CEO of Gauteng Tourism Authority. And when you notice her big, gorgeous smile, it's linked to a 5 million rand check that was just given today to boost her aviation. Also, please join me in welcoming Nomasonto Ndlovu, the acting CEO of South African Tourism, and one of my former Unilever family members. We also have joining us Enver Duminy, who's the CEO of Cape Town Tourism. We also have the acting CEO of Tourism KZN, Nhlanhla Khumalo. Please join us. And someone we all know and love, TBCSA board member and CEO of SATSA, Mr. David Frost. Please join us. Excellent. I'm going to walk and talk this, and I have a challenge to all of our panelists. We have a very tight deadline. We have effectively 22 minutes to cover off a conversation that was going to be 90, which means all of you, please, you have to answer the questions as if they were tweets. So you each have 130 characters in which to create an answer for all of you. And by being tweetable, that also means that they're doing the work for you. So all you have to do is hashtag TBCSA and push out whatever they say, and we're done. So, to start with all of you, now just a quick overview in terms of where we are. If we're going to grow numbers and grow rivals, where in the world is tourism right now? According to the UNWTO Tourism Barometer, overall, in the first quarter of this year, we have reached 80% of pre-pandemic levels in the first quarter 2023. An estimated 235 million international travelers, and the industry continues to be resilient, showing continued momentum. At a regional level, Middle East was the first to recover in the first quarter, very much fueled by the Qatar World Cup already bringing a lot of attention in, and as we know as well, religious tourism. Also, the Middle East was one of the best regions in terms of inter-regional travel and the value that it leveraged by having the GCC bloc in particular, maximizing the airlift. Huge lessons there. In Europe, it reached over 90% of pre-pandemic levels. Africa reached 88%, America's 85%, and we know that Asia Pacific was the last because they were the last region in the world to open up. So we talk about home. We talk about here, we talk about the stats. We know that we have a challenge ahead of us. First half of 2023, we had 4 million tourists, significant increase, however, we are lagging. I'm going to ask you all, in a tweetable fashion, as you have returned back to the tangible world of engaging in tourism, having sat behind the screens and really looked at what we were doing right and what we need to get done right now, why are you a smarter, better tourism leader because of the experience of the pandemic? Sonto, I'm going to start with you, please.
Thank you so much, and good to see you in South Africa. Welcome. For us, I think the critical learning was that you cannot do this alone. And I think if we can embrace just that, there's much more that we can do. In COVID, it was a matter of how do you collaborate, how do you get others on board, how do you make sure that you don't talk alone, because the problem that you have cannot be solved by just one person. So if we take that, I think that's a great learning to take forward.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Enver, I'm going to throw it to you.
So for me, probably what I would take out from it is we can't play the same game by the same rules. I think that's been the problem for South Africa, is we want to play a global competition, but we're still playing by old rules where we tie our own shoelaces sometimes, and we keep wanting to score own goals. And I think for me, it's about, to your point, Sonto, it's about the collaboration, but also reinventing ourselves and using the opportunity to rewrite the rules and create our own game as South Africa.
Brilliant. Thank you very, very much. David, over to you.
Yeah, I think echo what my friends have said. It's the way people collaborated and came together. But I think the other key lesson that just comes out is that no challenge is insurmountable. We were up against it. We got put on the red list from the UK, and we took them on. And through the truth and exposing data and what was right and proper, we managed to actually win that argument and get us off. So We're a small country, but if we acknowledge our problems and we are truthful about them and we collaborate together, the world is our oyster.
Brilliant. Excellent. Can I please ask Sthembiso?
I think we've already acknowledged what our problems are. I think the issue is around how do we then galvanize each other to push and implement as a collective. I think we do a lot of talking and less implementation, and that's why we're sitting where we're sitting today. And I totally agree with Enver. We can't use old rules. The world has shifted. Tourism has shifted. We need to wear new caps. We need to be thinking about new ways to actually drive the growth that we want.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And Nhlanhla.
Yes, in fact, one of the key learnings which has been mentioned, of course, is the triple P, which has added value. Quickly, we're able to work together subsequently. But one other aspect is the manner in which we quickly adapted it to digitalization as the country and as the tourism sector.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So building on that, each of you, in a tweetable fashion, I'm going to ask you, coming back now and focusing on getting those growth numbers up, building the arrivals, building the momentum, what is your priority number one? Sthembiso.
So we said as an industry that our growth will come from specific markets. We identified them already. We said India, China, and the rest, and the Africa air markets. And we said as a collective, we're going to actually come up with a China strategy. We've got the things that we need to do. The only thing that we've got to do is to sit in the room and say, what are we going to do and implement? Because I think those numbers, those people who are number crunchers and they like data, they've done that for us. And we all agreed that we'll be sitting 15 million in 2030. And we've put together certain things and certain initiatives like a mega event strategy for the country. So those are some of the things that we've got to go back and actually implement the things that we've agreed upon.
Brilliant. I have to say, I thought you were just going to say priority number one is spending 5 million rand. Take the gap, madam, take the gap. Sonto, priority number one.
In times like this, I go back to my foundation, which is what I learned from Unilever. It's all about understanding the consumer. And I always want to go to the core of who are we trying to bring to the country. We need to understand them, understand their patterns, their behavior. What are they doing now? From the numbers that we just saw now, is that consumers, the travelers, they are not waiting for us. They are doing different things. They are booking differently. And to Enver's point, it means we need to change because they are not going to change. They are already way ahead of us. And we need to make sure that we understand them and their behaviors and then make sure that our marketing is actually aligned to exactly where the consumer is.
You make a really important point there, Sonto, because it's not just understanding their needs, but now their habits of fulfilling those needs.
Yeah.
Because as we know, anyone blowing on any destination in the world, blowing the dust off of a 2020 strategy in 2023 will be a futile and a fatal error itself. Enver, priority number one for Cape Town.
Hashtag millennials, hashtag Gen Z, hashtag future sustainability.
Brilliant. Did everyone catch that and tweet that? Nhlanhla, priority number one.
I think our priority number one is to do the first things first, which is the 4 A's. The attractions, the activities, the accessibility, as well as the issue of infrastructure.
Brilliant. David.
So, yeah, coming back to just to sort of where you said what we learned from COVID, one of the great mantras that came out of that was control what you can control. There's a lot of stuff we talk about, the exogenous environment, home affairs, security, vehicle licensing, but a lot of that's outside our control. What we can control is ourselves. My priority, and I hope it also fits in with Sonto's, is the structured engagement. We finally have a way where we sit down together between the private sector and SAT. We've broken the problem down into geographical areas and into new opportunity areas. And by working together and really using SATs already, their momentum, their game plans. It's about refining our game plan and then aligning the whole sector behind it. But within that, the new opportunity area that I'm really excited about, that is something new and it appeals to this millennial market that our moderator spoke about, is adventure tourism. It's a great opportunity for us to go and present a new and interesting segment that appeals to a younger traveler, and we know when we get them here, our repeater rates are off the charts. So that would be
Brilliant.
my answer to that.
And I'm going to start weaving you in now, Derek, because for all of us, exactly as you've said, and linking to what Santo said as well, COVID changed our view and our value of travel, and it changed the values of travel as well. Based on that, and Derek, I'm going to start with yourself, why is South Africa perfectly positioned right now to take advantage of this new, fresh perspective that travelers have on traveling? Why is South Africa going to be their first choice?
So I think COVID has actually made the world a lot smaller. So we've had people that didn't even know how to do a WhatsApp call having Zoom meetings with us now, as a simple example. So the world has become a lot smaller, and people have realized that accessibility is actually there. It's not that expensive. And as much as we hate the dollar exchange rate, this is actually working in our favor as tourism to get those kind of markets in. We all mentioned Gen Z and the youth. These are the guys now, ironically, that are making more money than CEOs making TikTok videos, and that can afford to travel for 2 or 3 weeks at a time into a country. We need to adapt our mindset, not only internally, but also externally to youth development. We need to adapt the mindset to not only keep the youth coming into our industry, how do you make hospitality sexy again, hashtag, and pay the staff what they deserve. If the staff is getting paid, the youth are being valued, the service will be there, the value will be there, we'll keep getting inbound marketing. And South Africa organically is so unique that if we get those things right, people will organically come to us. We just need to keep giving them a reason why to come back.
Brilliant. David, your thoughts on that? Why now South Africa?
Yeah, I think that definitely in the post post-COVID world, one of the things that we are able to offer, and I think, is that we've never been a mass tourism destination. Pre-COVID 2019, we got 2.6 million overseas arrivals. So the whole campaign, one of the campaigns we launched recently, was the whole Free to Be campaign, which speaks exactly to what South Africa has to offer. But that is combined with the ability and the product we have to have a true immersive experience. And there are not many countries that actually offer that. So we are able to offer the sort of physical beauty, there's a cultural element, and there is a particular opportunity to make that immersive, which is what I think a lot of the new travelers are looking for.
Your comment about immersion is an important one, and that's why the news that was announced by the Honourable Minister about the relationship now between the Ministry of Tourism and Airbnb, with she and Velma signing that off, is so critical. Because there's nothing more immersive than living in someone's home, than having those local experiences. So that's fantastic that dialogue has now shifted into an MOU. Sthembiso, why is this the perfect time for South Africa? Because of the way travelers are looking differently at the world.
I think the new trend that we're seeing, the new traveler looking for a much more immersive experience, but most importantly, people who are becoming conscious in terms of what's their contribution to the destination they're traveling to. And I think more and more as South Africans, we are owning our story. We're able to actually tell the world about our story. We're no longer relying on a middleman to be able to share that story. I think more and more people are looking at a destination where communities are actually integrated into the whole offering. And I think that's the new, it's our new gold. We need to look at how do we ensure that we tell the story from a community point of view. There's a lot of things that are happening, around our tourism, or destinations that are quite integrated to community and their livelihoods. And I think that's a story that we really need to package. And the fact that we are now more and more embracing our heritage, our arts, our fashion, our food, and all those elements that make who we are as a people. I think you mentioned it earlier. Our challenge is how do we then tell this message? How do we package this message and take it out there so that it becomes appealing to people who would want to visit our destination? I think we've got the product. It's how we package it and how we tell that story.
Indeed. And it's interesting as well because you're raising this element of community is a really important shift that's taken place. People want to see the impact on community and how the visited are being not just treated, but where's the money going? They don't want it offshore anymore. They want to see that the money that Santo is spending when she goes on holidays is staying in the community. Because ultimately, if the community doesn't feel proud of being part of our industry, they are going to stop our industry, and they have every right to. It's a really important point. Nhlanhla, from your point of view.
Yes, of course. See, there is an emerging market, the young market of travelers, and that market has got energy and they need life. So by implication, it means that as a destination, South Africa, we should be able to provide life. And there is an opportunity for us as a country to ensure that we maximize on local events and international events. That's what we'll be able to provide for that kind of emerging market, which is full of young people who need life when they get into the destination.
Well said. Enver.
I think what makes us and actually sets us apart is two things. When you look at any other destination globally, it's either people or places. I think what we have is people and places. And it's that combination that actually makes a difference. But what we have is the spirit of Ubuntu ingrained in our culture. It's who we are. It's a unique selling proposition. It's not fake. It's not another Disneyland that we want to create. It's about how we harness that and how we own it. And I think, Ste, you're absolutely right. It's about how we tell our own story, not a Hollywood version of something. And that is going to be the biggest challenge for us. I think the greatest opportunity, and this is probably a challenge to all destination marketing organizations, is to maybe to keep quiet and to listen. And that's where digital comes in, is that every single tourist, every single citizen of a country is a content creator. The question is, how are we sourcing that content and allowing the authentic story to be told? And how do we connect the dots? And that's where digital, AI, all those things are the tools we have at this moment that we can actually liberate and tell a different story of our destination, that we don't have to try and fabricate and create content all the time. We can play a greater role as DMOs in crafting the story, directing it to the audiences who already we have a trust with. And the products is there. It's world class. I think what we need to do is, again, change the game and the role we play. Because what we keep doing is we keep falling into the same trap over and over again, even post-COVID. We all of us said at the beginning, at some stage, when we were still going through the toughest time of COVID, thank you, domestic market. The first thing that happens is our prices keep the domestic market out. And then we go, oh, when something bad happens again, we're going to come back to you. And that's when I say we need to be authentic. If we're going to be honest, we need to be truly honest. And if we want to sustain tourism, we're going to need communities, domestic market. That's the key thing. International is the cherry on top.
It's a great point. And you said something a moment ago, Enver, at the beginning of when you started talking about stories, and it was a build very much on what you were sharing. Pre-pandemic, it was very much about the industry around the world telling the stories to the travelers. Now travelers are saying, tell me your story. The demand is there rather than just pushing it out. And as you say, we now have all these different platforms. So, Santo, as the champion of getting our message out to the world, you're in a position where you're about to now put forward multiple campaigns. How have you taken, not how do you, but how have you taken all of this new world of travel insight and translated that into a new invitation to the world from South Africa and a new invitation to South Africans to South Africa so we don't lose the domestic side? Madam.
Thank you. It's critical for South African tourism that in our marketing approach, we continue to make sure that we are very insight-driven. So we do that in making sure that when we go out to market, we understand each and every market that we're operating in terms of what's important in that market, what are those consumers saying or doing, in order to tailor-make our messaging. Our messages are very much grounded on the fact that South Africa I say South Africa is a sexy destination because we are a destination that continues to break new ground in a world where there's so much to do around the world, but South Africa continues to intrigue the world with its people and its places, and people want this story. As I sit here today, we are on the verge of probably winning the 4th World Cup rugby, which hasn't been done before, but we are South Africa, and we come from where we come from, and this is our story. So we are a destination that has got such depth in terms of our people, in terms of our history and our heritage. And all we try to do is just to package that in such a way that it inspires the traveler to be intrigued even more, that they go to that website, they go and click, and they go and get more information. But what we've also found was that when people have been to South Africa, they become very good ambassadors. So we're doing a lot of work on content creation. We're doing a lot of work of seeding this content back to consumers, making sure that the travelers themselves are the ones who tell their friends and families about their experiences of South Africa. So with a combination of that, because Enver said earlier, we almost have to change the ways that we are doing things so that it's not the same as what we've done last year. So, for example, a TVC is not going to get you the travelers. You can't do that anymore. You've got to understand this whole content marketing area, the digital age that we are in, and be able to see the information within that space, making the traveler the hero of telling the story. Because as you said, it's no longer about we tell you. It's about how we make you understand our story so that you can tell it back to the people that are around you. So that is the combination of what we try to do. Obviously, South Africa is a destination that is diverse in terms of offering. So we do all of this, not forgetting the basics of the great wildlife that we have in South Africa, the great scenery, the natural beauty. We don't forget that because that is still quite important. But now it's the how we get the message through. It's not the traditional way that we used to do it.
Indeed. And you raise a really important point that we already had such abundance of offering. Now we have so much more because the world is wanting to see so much more. So the world is wanting to see so much more. We're now going to get technical. We know that we have everything that we need in terms of the reasons to be here. We need to get them here. And this is where the issue of airlift comes up. Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate, because as much as we are reaching levels of airlift that we had pre-pandemic, we knew before the pandemic that we didn't have enough airlift, that we didn't have enough east-west-east connectivity, that we didn't have enough interregional connectivity, that we didn't have enough medium and short-haul flights. So we might be at 2019 levels. That's not a good thing, because that wasn't enough. How do we deal with that? 5 million rand aside, how do we deal with that? Because we know that this is a deal breaker. And David, you had some demonstration you wanted to share. And this is not a TikTok demonstration, just for clarity. You're more than welcome. But you had a couple of pages you wanted to share. I'm going to give you 60 seconds to really quickly zip it through. If I can please get the 2 slides on the screen that David kindly shared. They are 2 stats of statistics, and here they come.
There.
Ta-da! There we go. Excellent. Over to you, and I suppose you're going to need clickability.
Can I just whack it on to the next
Here
one?
you go.
There we go. Oh,
Right.
There we go. Yeah, I mean, that just sort of, when we had the discussion this morning, let me just sort of hold it up. I mean, this paints an interesting picture, I think. If you look at our arrivals from 2008 through to 2019, you just look at from China. I mean, we peaked at 2013 at 151,000. And in the next 6 years, we go back to 93. And this is arguably the biggest outbound market in the world. Contrast that to what Australia did. And bear in mind, Anita, sorry if I'm sounding boring to those who've heard it before, what has Australia got? A sparsely populated coastline, a rock in the middle, and some mangy animals. The koala bear is a mangy animal. We've got the big five. We've got so much more to offer. The Aussies go from almost 700,000 to 1.4 million. Now, there are questions around the value of the market compared to some of our more traditional ones. But to me, this is an opportunity, not a problem. And when you look at China and India together, collectively of our 2.6 million 2019 arrivals, they're 6%. Europe and North America account for 77%. We're not going to grow Germany and Holland in double digits. It's just not going to happen. We can aim at it and we can do some good campaigns. This is where our growth is going to come from. And we look at the TBCSA targets that we put up last year of 15 million arrivals. This is where it's going to come from. And this is where new opportunities for new entrants into the market in terms of transformation and changing the face of our sector also come from. But clearly, what also happened, if you just go to the next slide, because that's India, you can see the same picture emerges. We peaked at 2013 at 112,000 arrivals. And by 2019, we went backwards to 95,000. And look at what the Aussies did. If we'd grown at the same pace as the Aussies, I think it would have been 240,000 arrivals at about 40,000 Rand per visit. It would have been 9.3 billion into our economy. There were airlift issues, because I think that's when SAA pulled out quite ignominiously. We were on the India Roadshow when that announcement happened. But that didn't help us. But airlift is obviously key. But, I think you raise a very key point there, Anita. But how we do that and how. But, if we can create demand, that's certainly one way to actually try and stimulate the supply.
Absolutely, and thank you for sharing that. And this is where it's important to marry in these sexy statistics, because this is the case making. Yeah. We know the numbers of arrivals that need to come through. We know how much they're going to spend on hospitality in terms of their rooms. The actual shopping spend, both of those markets are very high shoppers. An example of brilliance was, for instance, when Emirates, several years ago, when they were trying to bring in the Chinese tourists, what did they do? They took away baggage restrictions, the carriage on the aircraft. Absolutely brilliant. If they're coming to shop, give them more space in their luggage to spend it. So when we look at these now in terms of priorities, I'm going to ask you all, and I'm going to start with Derek, because you come in from a unique perspective. What do you believe to be the critical starting point for making those arrivals numbers grow through incremental airlift? Where does the focus need to be if you're writing the brief for the Honourable Minister?
Sell your products the way your customers want to buy your products. No longer tell your customer, this is what I have. Adjust your sales strategy, your marketing strategy, your airlift strategy on what the customers want. Your Emirates example, brilliant. They figured out what the customers want, and they maximized off it. It's about time that we start selling the way the customers want to buy, and then the world will be our oyster.
Indeed. And interestingly, they can be very simple thorns we need to pull out of the foot. Another example with China was Mexico. They wanted to attract the Chinese market several years ago, and then they realized that Mexico doesn't take Union Pay credit cards. That's the primary card for the Chinese consumer, the traveler. They bring that in, and suddenly the Mexicans can spend because they simply didn't have the way to get the currency moving. I'm going to ask now, Sthembiso, from your point of view, you have the wonderful investment that's been made into Gauteng Air Strategy. Fabulous. Choices of focus. Where would you want the first area of focus to be in terms of markets when it comes to applying that investment?
Because already there's work that has been done. We all agree where our growth markets are. I'd say India and China, and I think I'm happy that David showed the numbers. What he also forgot to ask to say is that if you look at the Australian numbers, they did something to actually get down, those numbers. They focused on the airlift. They focused on product development. They ensured that from a supply side, the destination is ready to receive those visitors from China. We sat here, we said, for us to actually begin to receive those visitors, our destination needs to be ready. So the method of payments, do we have from an experience point of view, those experiences that they're looking for, accommodation point of view, do we actually take into account that India, for example, is a multi-generational travel? a market. So those are the things that we need to do. So for me, I think the priority should be those markets where we're going to get the double-digit numbers that are going to get us to the 2030 target that we've set ourselves as, as a destination. And definitely for Gauteng, we are working with all the stakeholders within the Gauteng axis to actually ensure that, we start engaging those markets in terms of, finding new investors to take up the routes.
Brilliant. And I think what you're saying is so critical, because what we don't want to do is start applying investment into aviation that actually re-embeds the disappointment we had before the pandemic hit. So Enver, I'm going to go to you, because you have the experience in Cape Town with the whole air access strategy that went. If you were to provide guidance around where focus should be based on your having lived the experience of developing that strategy, what would you recommend focus be put on?
I think where I would recommend focus is to avoid cannibalization of routes. I think with all good intentions, if you look at how the spread of routes are happening, it's quite European-based. So you're cannibalizing that market. And what we've been focusing on is the South-South corridor. Is that Cape Town becomes that gateway for the South-South corridor, where there's Brazil that we're connecting now. If you're looking at the Antarctica, Australasia, we are actually flipping the European model on its head, because that's how Europe worked well. It's a centralized model, and it can kind of eat up everything in close proximity. So all we're doing is that we're kind of flipping the script, and that's why I'm saying change the rules. The game has been played, but it's how you really look at yourself as a destination. And using that and that confidence and skills that you have, that's locally grown. And then, of course, we need to also determine what you want, not what the airline wants. I know it's there, but there's also where government, airports, company also needs to come to the party. Because a lot of things that we need to do is smarter. I want to use that Australian example of yours. The other thing that UnionPay did, because actually UnionPay has been a partner of Cape Town Tourism for about probably 8-9 years already. And what we found was what Australia were clever on is they actually gave a visa-free passport to black card holders of UnionPay. These are millionaires and billionaires. They would have to come without applying for visas, none of that stuff. They could come in and move at their will. That meant they started setting up businesses, trade, investment. So again, we must think of, if we want to attract the market and we're going to be serious about it, we must put a lot of effort in and take away all the barriers. Not just a few, all the barriers. Because then we are definitely going to be competitive.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And this is where Nhlanhla, I would encourage you to have conversations going with Sthembiso and with Enver to make sure that you can grab all that same intel and use it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very almost red clock ahead of me. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 great panelists in front of us, and we have coffee waiting outside. So my last challenge, I'm going to give 30 seconds to each of you. But I want you to answer the question, not from the point of view of your business cards, but you. You are leaders that connected as a community in the last 3 years in a way that we never have before. We were literally let into each other's homes through our screens. David Frost, why does tourism matter to you?
God, just we have the privilege, I think, of selling one of the most amazing places on the planet, and it's exemplified in, I think, and I think we need more data on this. We're I think almost the world champions in repeater rates. So you get somebody here once, it touches them, and you are selling something that is authentic, and we have our narrative and where we've come from and where we find ourselves today it's been an amazing journey, and I think we're all privileged to. Doesn't matter if you're 28 or 59 in my case. We've lived through, I think, one of the most amazing sea changes in history. And
Brilliant.
We get the privilege to sell it.
And you do realize David has just leaked out a secret that next year we're going to be celebrating his 60th birthday at this event. Derek, why does tourism matter to you? 30 seconds.
Beautiful industry is the only way to explain it. It's the only truly global industry in my world, or in the world. Because if you train to be a skilled worker in a South African hotel, it means you can work in any hotel in the world. So once again, hospitality and tourism is the most open-minded, unique, universal industry in the world. And that's not going to change.
Stunning. Sthembiso, 30 seconds.
For me, it's about restoring dignity to the people. It creates jobs. It actually enhances their livelihoods. But also it restores, heritage and our culture. It just gives it longevity. It doesn't die. And tourism is about storytelling as well. So we're able to take these stories for many generations to come to still enjoy.
Brilliant. Thank you. Nhlanhla, why does it matter to you?
Yeah, in fact, tourism has got a multiplier effect. It addresses most of our problems as a country. We are able to grow our economy, we are able to create jobs, we are able to address the issues of poverty and infrastructure development. So therefore, tourism is able to assist all other sectors to grow. That is why it matters the most.
Brilliant. Thank you. Enver.
I think tourism matters to me because it can change people's lives. Simple as that. Whether you're within the tourism industry, a visitor, it changes your life. And the one thing that I hope we as tourism actually do, and not just talk about it at conferences all the time, is, and it's a mantra that I believe in, a great place to visit first has to be a great place to live for its people. Otherwise, we are not being true to the product that we are promoting.
Brilliant. And gentlemen, you know I'm going to give the lady the last word.
Thanks, Anita. Well, with tourism, you get to do something fun, yet change the world. Do the stuff that you love and contribute positively to society. Create jobs, build the economy, but whilst having an utmost fun. You go to an Amapiano concert, that event brings in a lot of money to a destination, but you're just having fun. And by just that act, you are able to contribute positively to the society. And I think that is why it matters.
Brilliant.
You go and watch a soccer game, you go and go on holiday. But by doing so, you are doing much bigger things. You are contributing so positively to the society in that area.
Stunning. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we wrap this up, we have had two sexy data geeks on our stage today. They provide the numbers. You've just heard the case making as to why our industry matters, because ultimately we all work in a vocation, not a profession, and we're blessed to do so. So with a warm thank you, please, to our panel, and then after that, join us for coffee outside, and we'll have you back quickly, and then I'm going to hand it over to Lynette before you all escape the room. So, big round of applause, please.